Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Digivisio webinar. So glad to see you all here today. Our program for the next hour looks like this. First, we have Sakari Heikkilä, and he will tell us about Digivisio's first implementation, the continuous and flexible learning tray. And after that, Tuula Heide will tell us about the e-learning and digital pedagogy in Digivisio. In the end, we will have some time for questions and discussions. And my name is Siiri Nousiainen, and I will be the host of this webinar today. You can ask questions throughout the whole webinar. Please use the Q&A functionality, those little bubbles on the bar in Zoom. Now, let's begin. I give the floor to Sakari Heikkilä. Go ahead, Sakari.
Thank you, Siiri, and very good afternoon on my behalf as well. I'm here today to give an update on the continuous and flexible learning tray, what the plans are, what it will include, and what is the release schedule for the next couple of years. So my name is Sakari Heikkilä. I'm a program manager at Digivisio, and my responsibilities are related to strategic change and, for example, legislative questions that arise when we are implementing the services that we are doing. Let's go to the first or the next slide, please. So when designing this learning tray, who was the customer or the end user that we were thinking about? We were thinking about a continuous learner, a lifelong learner, and someone who is already in the working life. So we need to design the services in a way that suits this type of person, this type of learner. So the flexible learning needs to take into account the individual needs and motives of the learner, and take into account solutions that enable freedom of choice. And especially these services need to take into account that the learner has a life beside learning. So they are working, and they might have family, they have hobbies, they have life outside of learning. So they're not students in the sense of a traditional degree student. Let's go to the next slide. So what does the world look like with the eyes of a lifelong learner at the moment? If they go to Google, for example, and look for something, some learning opportunities, for example, in marketing, as in this case, there is no shortage of opportunities. There are lots of courses. There are multiple opportunities where to improve their knowledge on marketing, for example. But the reality is that it's very hard to find something that suits their individual needs, their individual schedule, and suits their specific needs, for example, in the area of learning methods or the way the learning is distributed. So, for example, in this case, this person is looking for something in the area of marketing. They are working, and they obviously have a personal life with including children, and they have only time to study, for example, on a Tuesday evening once a week. If they look into Google, they find lots of opportunities where to study and different kind of study modules, but it's really hard to find something that suits your particular schedule, your particular needs, and for example, in this case, offerings that would be available on Tuesday evenings, for example. So what our solution brings is a tray where the learner can filter and look for learning opportunities that suits their particular needs, their timetable, the preferred method of learning, preferred location, the preferred higher education institution, and other parameters that we can make available. And so this would include all the offering from all the higher education institutions in Finland on one tray where they can look for content. There would be also, the learner also has their personal profile, which enables the tray to suggest certain courses based on their background information and based on similar learners with similar profiles, what they are looking for example. So there's also intelligence behind this tray, and this tray would also include, for example, the registration for the courses, and if the course would include a fee, the registration and the payment for that course could also be done through this tray. So this makes the life of the learner much easier, and looking for learning opportunities would be a breeze compared to the current situation where all the offering is distributed everywhere around the internet and there is no single place to find the content. So what does this learning tray include in the background? The next slide, please. Here on the yellow, you can see what is the actual continuous and flexible learning tray, what is visible to the learner, the interface, so to speak. They only see a certain interface, but behind that interface, there are a multitude of services, some of which I already referred to earlier. There needs to be the educational offering itself. So this needs to come from the higher education institutions onto the tray. So there needs to be a retrieval of that information from the data platforms. There needs to be an identity management service, which enables the actual My Data or the student profile or learner profile. And this My Data enables personalized experience on that flexible learning tray. The IA-based guidance services, which I referred to, is closely linked to the My Data component. So for the continuous and flexible learning tray to give recommendations to the learner, there needs to be data about the learner in the background, which the AI-based guidance services utilize. And that is an important new element that we will bring to the learner in the future. And then the joint application and registration services. So registering for courses and also the possible payment if the course has a course fee, for example, it must include a component that will allow the learner to register and pay for transfer the money to the institution that is offering the learning. And behind all this, there needs to be the solid data platform and other data sources that enable all this to work. And this is a technical solution which is behind the learning tray. Let's go to the next slide. So what does all this bring to the learner? The learner knows this one important place where to find all the educational offering from all the higher education institutions. They know that this tray will offer learning opportunities that meet their competence needs and other criteria that they have for the learning. So in practice, the AI-based service helps identify competence needs based on one's own goals, prior learning, and the competence needs of working life. The learner can also take a look at possible learner paths towards the goals that they have, for example, academically or career-wise. Comparison and selection are supported by intelligent recommendations based on the learner's existing knowledge and labor market data. So in the future, we'll also bring data on the labor market onto this tray, and this will also add to the intelligence of the guidance that we can offer on the tray. Let's go to the next slide. The higher education institutions, what do they benefit from this solution? Obviously, the educational offering will reach a much wider public than today. The universities and universities of applied sciences, they have their website and they have their own offerings on their websites. But bringing all this to one place will obviously increase the volume of learners that are looking into this offering. In practice, the new tray will also bring a lot of information to the higher education institutions, how the learners act, what they are looking for when they are on this tray. They can also make observations on what might be trending at the moment in the working life. What are real learners looking for? What are the skills that they have demand for? This will also improve the higher education institutions' capability of creating modules together. They can also bring offerings that they have built together onto this tray and deliver them to the learners. Let's go to the next slide. How about society? We have in our vision, we also promise that the solutions that Digivisio will deliver, they will benefit the whole of society. Obviously, building knowledge and increasing the skills of the workforce will benefit the whole of society. It will make the working life and the companies in Finland more competitive compared to other countries, for example. We can also deliver topical and tailored educational offerings that respond directly to the needs of the employers as well as the employees. The information that these solutions will deliver, the data will also be made available nationally and also available for academics and as well as companies that can create additional services on top of the ones that we are delivering. Which brings us to the company's role in all of this. We will invite companies to the ecosystem. We will share data with them on our terms or the terms of the higher education institutions, so they can create new business opportunities on top of what we are building together with the 38 higher education institutions. So we want to enable an ecosystem for companies on top of the new services that we are developing. Co-design and open data will be very important in the future, bringing the employers and the companies closer to the higher education institutions, sharing data and building on that data together. We can create something new together with the companies. So what is our release schedule? Obviously, building this will not happen overnight, and we will not build this in a one step and then release it to the whole public. We need to do this step by step in technical releases. So we are starting with non-formal education, educational offering that is not degree related offerings. This could include basically a very wide range of contents. It could be podcasts, it can be open learning materials, public lectures, webinars, basically you name it. These are offerings that have not traditionally been widely available or widely marketed by the higher education institutions. So we want to bring this all visible and available to the learners. And all these solutions, including this first release, these will be piloted together with higher education institutions. So we will test them with a smaller group and then bring them out to a wider public. In the second release, we will bring formal education, especially open university and open applied university studies. Also in the second release, we will create the first co-designed or joint content by the higher education institutions. So offerings that have been designed and built by more than one institution. So we'll try to boost the cooperation between institutions. In the third release, the major new component will be the ecosystem operators. So we want to have institutions or organizations outside the higher education institutions that would be providing content or providing learning opportunities on the platform. And this might be companies, but it might be other organizations as well. We'll see who we will include in the release number 3. And the fourth release, that would include the formal education offering and from the higher education institutions that are involved in the project. So this could be cross-institutional studies, continuing education, commissioned training, specialization studies as well. The first release will be coming out in the first quarter of next year, and then the second in late 23, and then there are 2 releases that are planned for 24. So this is a schedule, and how we will do this together with the higher education institutions is that for each of these releases, we will have a pilot, and we will call for higher education institutions to take part in these pilots. And this is not the actual major release of the service as of yet. So we will do this in stages and bring out the solutions, the technical solutions in stages. So this is a brief overview of the tray, and I will be along here for any questions and comments for later. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sakari. And yes, if you have any questions about the tray or for Sakari, please feel free to use the Q&A functionality in Zoom. Thank you. And yes, next we have Tuula. She's going to tell us about digital pedagogy in Digivisio. Ole hyvä, Tuula.
Thank you, Siiri, and thank you, Sakari, for your presentation. So my name is Tuula Haide, and I'm here to tell you about digital pedagogy. I work as a program manager in digital pedagogy. So obviously, all the things I'm saying here are concentrated on digital pedagogy, but also have, like you will see, they have digital pedagogy has a lot of influence for all the other areas, what we do in our project. So today I'm gonna tell you briefly what we have done in digital pedagogy so far, and what are some of the future plans. And I would love to hear your ideas and your comments on this at the end of the presentation. So I'm moving on once I figure out how to do it. Okay, arrow is not working and enter is working. Good. Okay. What we have realized and created an idea is that high quality digital pedagogy has a key role in Digivisio 2030. If I say it in Finnish, I don't know if that's better or not. But anyways, digital pedagogy is affecting all the areas that we do here. And it's one of the things that we should consider in all of our doings and all of our end products, what we produce here in our project. And what we have done so far, so we are talking about last year and this year, we have started a strong cooperation with pedagogical networks. And what I mean by pedagogical networks in this context is networks that are nationally recognized as networks that involve, I would say, most or all of the higher education institutions in Finland. And those two recognized ones at the moment are Kouke Network and Digipeda Network. We have started to conceptualize a national pedagogical site. And what this means is more than a site. It's kind of old-fashioned way to say what I'm trying to say, but we don't have, or I don't have a better wording for this yet. So what we are talking about is that the fact is that all of the higher education institutions have done a lot of work in pedagogical development and research, but the data is scattered around. We don't find it in one place. We need to go and look for it, where to find the information. So what we are trying to do here is to create a site where we have gathered pedagogical innovations, research, development projects, etc. in one place. And when I say that this might be old-fashioned wording, is because it's not supposed to be, hopefully in the future, just a site. Hopefully it's site where we can use, for example, artificial intelligence to improve what you can do there. For example, as a teacher, I could go there and find some competence development that suits exactly my purposes or research that I'm interested in. Maybe I could find new colleagues from there and network and discuss with my colleagues through this place. But this is all coming. So like I said, just starting to conceptualize the idea of what this is going to be in the future. Then what we have done is we started early in already in 21 competence development sessions, I would say. We call them studios. What I mean, what it basically means is training or webinar sessions, but we wanted to call them studios instead of training because they were only an hour and a half per one session. So you wouldn't be calling as a pedagogical expert those for training, but these were studio sessions for teachers and support staff. And we will also have some studios this year. And about the training and the studios, I will explain to you more during this presentation. And in the beginning of this year, we accomplished or finished 2 preliminary studies. And first one was recommendations for ways to advance the ability to study and to prevent dropping out. And the second one was competence development for teachers and support staff. And I will briefly come back to these also during this presentation. And now there is an exhausting list, and this is not all of it, but I wanted to highlight some of the things that are coming, especially during the this year to 2022, and in the following years, some of them. We are creating a prospect for digital pedagogy at the moment. And what this means, or why do we do this, is that higher education institutions realized and wanted to discuss about what is digital pedagogy in our project. What are we actually talking about when we talk about digital pedagogy? So we started a work around creating a vision for digital pedagogy. What is the digital pedagogy, or e-learning, or online learning? Lots of terms we use. What is it going to be? What is it going to be in 2030, and what does it look like, and how should we develop, and what are the steps to move forward that we are in the place where we're going to be in 2030? So we are. This is an ongoing process still, and we have done a lot for this with the higher education institutions, and this work will come to end, I think, in September. So after that, we can discuss and present more about this work. In all of the, before I'm going to the next one, I want to point out that in all of the work we do here, we don't start from the beginning. Like, for example, the next one, criteria for high quality online learning. It's very important to notice and remember that there is a lot of research and there is a lot of development that have been done already for this work. But in Digivisio 2030, we want to put those all excellent things that have been done in the institutions together and find the common or the joint understanding, for example, what the criteria for high quality online teaching could be in our context. We are also doing international benchmarking, and it's going to be very interesting. I'm really excited about hearing what internationally is done in digital pedagogy and how close their ideas and their problems and their things, what they want to do, are the ones that we are doing in Finland. So we will have those results by the end of June, so release probably in August or so. And then what we start in the fall, in the beginning of fall, is high quality means for assessing learning and measures to promote the ability to study. This is a continuous process from the preliminary study I briefly explained to you earlier, same as the number 6, competence development, which is the next step from the studios, where we actually have national trainings provided together in Finland. Then we also have workshop series coming in the fall. First one is artificial intelligence-based learner guidance, and then joint rules in digital pedagogy. And then also very interesting thing what we are doing, we are exploring what the cooperation in the higher education institutions pedagogy could be in the future. And then also modularity and curriculum development is something that we have kind of started already, but in August more. And then also in August, we are gonna jump into the student selection and entrance examinations to see if Digivisio 2030 has some role in student selection and entrance examination, or maybe it doesn't. And if it does, what the role could be, and that we'll find out in the fall. And then maybe more in the future, next year, we are looking into learning platform collaboration. What could it be between the institutions in the future, and then also learning analytics. And this, like I said, it's not everything we do, but maybe some highlights of the future work. And then I mentioned the studios that we had, yes, last year. I didn't list them because they are history, but I realize now I could have had a link for the recordings we have from those studios, which are all subtitled in Finnish and English as well. You can find them in our wiki site. And if not, you can always ask me or somebody else from our office. But what we have coming in the fall is in September, we concentrate on open learning practices. And then in October, we have high quality online learning in the focus. And then in November, we have the game of modularity. And then finally in December, assessment methods and micro-credentials. And now that I'm speaking in English, I would think that many of you might think the language of the sessions or the studios. This fall, all of them except one is going to be in Finnish. High quality online learning will be delivered as a mixture of Finnish and Swedish. But all the materials, all the recordings will be subtitled in Finnish and English. And there will be hopefully an answer to the language question later, but I will come back to that as well. And here I realized that you can't copy the addresses, but maybe you can find them or whatever way. But these preliminary studies that I'm briefly going to go through now with you, walk in them with you, are foundable in Wiki and also I think our websites, I hope. But what I'm presenting today is just a small glance of the studies, and the wider materials can be found in our Wiki pages. So first, recommendations for ways to advance the ability to study and to prevent dropping out. We had a group of people from Suomen e-oppimiskeskus ry who were coordinating this work. And the main role of the work was in the institutions. So we involved all the higher education institutions into this work, which meant practically tens or hundreds of people who are working around this area. And Suomen e-oppimiskeskus ry ended up giving us 20 recommendations of what we should do to advance the abilities for learners to study. And how this is working is the recommendation work first, and then they tell what it means in more detail. And this is all explained in very wide detail in the articles or the reports that you can find in our sites, who they thought could be responsible for working on this matter and who could be the coordinating partner in this. So just briefly going through these. They recommended that there should be information of well-being in studies, and that there should or could be a support forum of learning ability. We should develop more study skills and use digital learning badges to prove the knowledge you have or the learners have. And developing digital skills of learners is also important. Then they wanted to emphasize student exchange and cultural digital skills. And then evaluation criteria of MOOCs. For example, there are tons of MOOCs you can use, but what is the criteria based on what I would choose the MOOC that it's beneficial for me and it's relevant for me. So criteria for that. And then promotion of social skills and digital environments, development of peer support and encouragement for peer tutoring. They recommended that we could have pedagogical models to support communities, and they also recommended that visualization of individual learning plans would be a good idea, and then strengthening of the supervision of the bottlenecks, for example, final projects, which might be very hard for some learners, and then I know that many higher education institutions already have them, but more ideas for back to studies group and career counseling. And then development of learning analytics, like I showed you before. That's one of the things we want to do anyways. They wanted to promote real-time communication with students, and they thought that diversification of learning environments is a good idea at this moment now after the pandemic, and flexible use of campus rooms as well. And then studification and credit transfer should be promoted and increase the effectiveness of working with stakeholders. Then briefly, competence development for teachers and support staff. In this work, we had a group of representatives, experts from universities and universities of applied sciences, and also in this one, of course, all the institutions they're involved in the work. And why do they suggest what they did? And I'll show you in a brief moment. They thought and they presented that doing things together is resource wise. There are some things that all the institutions, or almost all of them, are doing. For example, providing, just a simple example, they are providing guides of how to use a program that might be used also in other institutions. So why wouldn't we do that together? Something like that. And then this ties into the next bullet, enables the sharing of common support materials and good practices. And I would add also find the best expertise from all the institutions so that the expertise could be shared with other organizations as well. And who are the target group for these competence developments are teaching and support service staff, teacher students, guidance staff. I don't know if the list continues, but basically all higher education institutions. And the idea is to offer training courses from all the way to basic courses to advanced level courses. The study shows, or the research shows, that 10% of formal learning happens through workshops, e-learning, literature, or courses. 20% happens through peer mentoring, teamwork, performance reviews, job shadowing, or feedback, for example, and 70% through taking on different new tasks and participating in different things. So with that in mind, we created this model you see in this slide. It was a picture that we could have national offering by Digivisio that would promote innovative partnership. And then higher education institutions themselves could, or maybe should, I don't know, still have individual offering that would promote also collegial and team learning. And then to promote individual learning, of course, there is teachers' personal development that they do themselves. This is next year's plan. And we have a group of people starting working on these in August. And these in the middle are the themes that we chose jointly together with the institutions as first themes for training next year. And there are assessment, guiding, togetherness and interaction in digital environments, and pedagogical script writing and learning design in digital environments. And they are also described more in depth in these little boxes around the pie. And to some, planning for the 4 themes was launched this year, and they will be implemented in 23. And for each of these 4 training, it was an idea that each theme will be planned by at minimum of 2 higher education institutions. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. It might be that we combine some of these, but we already have a group of people for figuring this out with us. So I'm confident that we have an excellent training program for next year coming. And then the language question I already mentioned before, it will be addressed in materials, recordings, and interaction. And also I think that we are forced to maybe form some guidelines or decisions for how the language question is solved in the future. And then next slide. More principles for the training. All the implementation will have self-study material or packages or courses and in-depth interactive section. And in interactive section, guidance is having a big and important role. And what we want to have is that we see that all the implementations should serve as an example of high quality online example of learning and teaching, modulation and micro-learning. And the competence development implementations will follow the open learning and accessibility principles, of course. And all the planning will be based on co-design, so that we will gather all the best information, all the best experts we have to share their knowledge here. And all the information or the implementations and the people who are working in them are part of joint planning and peer evaluation. And at the same time, we are creating uniform approach and operating methods also for the future, and especially for the future. And we are already, just a side note, we are already planning the themes for year of 24. I had to think for a while which year, but yes, 2024. And the use of service design processes and learner-centered approach will be a backdrop for engaging higher education institutions. And we, as a Digivisio 23 project, we will be with the higher education institutions and the experts and trainees and trainers, etc., here to coordinate the thing as we decide how it's reasonable to do. Thank you. This is my part.
Perfect. Thank you, Tuula. We can't see no questions at the Q&A functionality, but it's still possible. If you have any questions, please go ahead. And next, I will tell you briefly about the how to follow Digivisio online. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, digivisio2030.fi/newsletters. And we have our first issue is coming up like tomorrow. So now is the best time to go and subscribe, so you will get the first newsletter. And you can also find us on social media. We have a Twitter account and LinkedIn account, so please follow us and let's have a good discussion in there as well. Okay, if there are no further questions or any notes, I thank you all for coming today and listen our webinar. And please feel free to contact us with any questions about the program at digivisio@csc.fi. Thank you all. Have a nice summer and see you again soon.